At my son's wedding, my dill smashed my face into the hot mashed potatoes. "Taste the food, old witch," she said. That's when someone among the guests turned pale with terror and screamed, "She's a billionaire." That night I did something that, if you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. If I fail today, I'll lose my son for good. The grand ballroom looks like a dream someone bought with a platinum card. Chandeliers like falling stars, napkins folded into swans, the band softening every edge with old love songs. I sit at table 12, 2 football fields from the head table, with distant cousins who blink at me, smile politely and keep their stories short like they've been warned. I tell myself it's fine. I don't need a center seat to watch my boy begin his life. Evan looks so handsome in the tux we rented when money was supposedly tight. He wipes his eyes when Riley glides down the aisle, white silk moving like fog across a lake. For a single, impossible moment, hope loosens the iron bands around my chest. Maybe she'll be the bridge back to him. Maybe tonight is where all my absences start to make sense. Dinner arrives, prime rib, green beans that snap, and mashed potatoes steaming under a gloss of butter. I'm tasting nothing, just memorizing his laugh. Riley laughs brighter. She owns every glance in the room without appearing to try. Half a glass into a champagne toast, conversations around me go dim, as if someone turned down the volume, and I feel her before I see her. "Mrs. Morgan," she says, loud enough for the next 3 tables. Her smile is lacquer, perfect and hard. "We wanted to thank you." I turn, napkin still on my lap. "You're welcome, dear." I can smell the champagne on her breath, citrus and bravado. "For everything you've done for Evan," she adds, and then her tone changes by a single degree. "All those nights you were busy." Chairs hush, phones tilt, my skin tightens. "If you'd like to talk later." "No, now is perfect." She leans and the sweetness drops off her face like a mask slipping. "He told me about the plays you missed, the games, the conferences, how he ate alone. You chose work over your child, and now you want to play grandmother?" Heat arrives in my cheeks before the potatoes do. I stand, but her hand presses me back, nails through fabric. The plate in her other hand flashes white, and then impact, heat and salt and pepper mash into my face. It's absurd how fast humiliation burns. It sprints ahead of pain. The hot starch scalds my left cheek. A gasp tears from the room like paper. The fork drops. Someone shouts for napkins, someone for security. But everything narrows to the slick drip down my jawline and Riley's hiss at my ear. "Taste the family meal, old witch." Silence clamps down, and then a man at the bar, a stranger with a shocked laugh, says, "Do you people even know who that is?" He names a number I've kept buried under a modest apartment and a second-hand sedan. Billion. The word rings crystal clear. Heads swivel. Eyebrows recalculate. Riley's fingers loosen around the empty plate. Evan is nowhere. Phones are everywhere. I stand very carefully, starch sliding off my chin, and walk. Each heel strike against the marble lands like a gavel. No one blocks me. No one apologizes. At the door, I hear him, my son, calling, "Mom, what?" And is it true? And I keep walking because I cannot hold his eyes and that number at the same time. At home, my bathroom smells like supermarket aloe and burnt milk. I rinse and rinse, white paste circling the drain, cheek angry and pink when I catch it in the mirror. I want to sleep for a week. But sleep is for people who can afford to miss the first hour of a fire. I make tea I won't drink and set ice against my face until the sting dulls to a steady throb. Tomorrow will be terrible. Tonight must be useful. 3 days go by the way pain goes by, loud at first, then a hum under everything. My phone glares, full of texts I don't open. When Evan finally calls, his voice is a colder version of the boy who used to climb into my lap and fall asleep. "We need to talk," he says. Neutral ground, the cafe on 3rd, 1 hour. I'm there 20 minutes early in the corner booth that catches the least light. It rains like the city is practicing forgetting, blurring edges into streaks. Evan sits, orders coffee, and watches the server walk away before looking at me. Are you rich? Yes? How? The word is flat, like a board he means to nail me to. After his father died, there were bills and men knocking and a boy who needed food more than explanations. I tell Evan about the janitor shifts, the small real estate office I cleaned at night, about a gruff broker who saw something ferocious in a woman who wouldn't break, and how small properties turned into bigger ones until I built a quiet empire with the lights off. I keep my voice even, the past as measured as a ledger. I don't tell him about the threats. I don't tell him about having our mail sent to a P.O. box so no one would find us. I don't tell him about the trust set to bloom on his 40th birthday. I tell him the minimum and it sounds like everything. So, I grew up thinking we had nothing. His jaw hardens. I took scholarships you could have covered with pocket change. You let me feel small. I wanted you to be chosen on your own merit, I say. I wanted you to be loved for you. You mean you wanted to protect yourself from women like my wife? From anyone who'd see you as a meal ticket? I glance at the rain, then back at my son's face. Evan, she attacked me in a room full of people. She was protecting me, he says, and his loyalty slashes me cleaner than the potatoes did. From you. A car hisses past. The cafe door chimes. I fold my napkin to keep from reaching for him. You're angry, I say. You have a right, but you also have a right to the truth about the person you married. We're done here. The chair legs scrape. He stands. I'll be in touch. He leaves without touching the coffee. When you try to give your child a safer world, you might teach him to mistrust the hand that caught him. I sit until the cup goes cold and the window stops pretending to be anything but glass. My cheek aches when I smile at the absurdity of self-pity. Then I take out my phone. Mark, I say when he answers. I need a quiet, complete background on someone. Start yesterday. Mark Chase never says, I told you so. He says, send me what you have and don't text names, and hangs up to make things happen. I used to think of him as security. Tonight I think of him as a flotation device. 2 days pass. I bandage the burn with a little ointment that smells like childhood and resilience. I ignore the headlines that people send me, little fishing lures with barbs. I turn off the news when it runs a pixelated clip of mashed potatoes hitting my face as if it were slapstick. I try to eat. Water tastes like chalk. I walk the block and breathe as if oxygen will change the story. When the buzzer sounds, it startles me into dropping my spoon. Mark's courier, no uniform, just jeans and anonymity, hands me a flat, heavy envelope and walks away before I sign. I close the door and lay the envelope on the dining table like it might explode. It does, in its own way. Photos, screenshots, notes clipped clean from public record and stitched with the thread only professionals can see. Riley's life is written in glamour and erasures. A string of men, older, wealthier, whose social media timelines end with expensive smiles and begin with sudden purchases that never quite match their salaries. No criminal charges, just the silence of men who would rather forget than explain. Dates overlap. Stories don't. My fingers ache from turning pages. I press my palm flat against a photo where she wears a dress I recognize. My son's wedding, different color, and the date stamp puts her on the arm of a man I can find on any business page. I want to call Evan. I want to shout. I want to rewind to the aisle where I let myself hope. Instead, I call Mark. You were right, he says before I ask, voice low, like truth should be whispered. It's a pattern, and she's smart. Nothing that sticks. She counts on shame to do the paperwork. Keep going, I say. Focus on anything medical or legal. If she tries to make me look incompetent, I want to be there before the idea forms. He exhales. I'll widen the net. It's nearly midnight when a neighbor's TV bursts into laughter through the wall. I sit with the photos spread in front of me like a bleak family album and decide I'll be the villain if that's the role that saves my son. I've been worse things. Morning brings a message from Evan. Riley wants to apologize. Tonight? It's a trap or a performance or both, but I text back, of course, 7 p.m. I cook pot roast the way he liked it when he was 8 and ruin it with too much salt the way I'll need to later. I put on a sweater one size too big. The mirror shows me a woman who could misplace her keys and her fortune. I look at her long enough that she looks like me. They arrive exactly on time, precisely the way people do when they want credit for punctuality. Evan's eyes slide from my cheek. He notices the pink edge, winces, and then to the table. Riley coordinates her expression the way some women coordinate handbags. Concern, humility, a soft clutch of my hands that reads as adoration to a passing glance. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Morgan," she says, voice trembling where guilt should live. "I let my feelings about Evan's childhood get the better of me. I was wrong." I study her face like a map left out in the rain. "Thank you for coming," I say. "Sit. Please." Overcooked carrots, gravy that sticks to the tongue, and small talk that wants to be forgiveness but can't afford it. I let my voice wobble strategically. "Some days I feel so foggy," I say, pushing food around the plate. "I've been thinking about seeing a doctor for my memory." Riley glows like a battery freshly charged. "That's so wise," she says gently. "We know a wonderful specialist." "Let's not rush Mom," Evan says, the word mom landing lopsided like a table with a short leg. "But we can help with things. Finances," Riley supplies. "Household decisions, so you can rest." I inhale once, steady and quiet. "It would be a relief," I say, and watch the hook set. "I've been thinking about making things easier for both of you, for the future." Evan's fork pauses. Riley's knuckles go white around her napkin, then relax. It's strange. The intimacy of watching someone measure your bank accounts behind their eyes. They leave early, satisfied. I rinse plates under water, too hot for my tender cheek, and listen to the building breathe through the vents. When the apartment is quiet again, I call Mark. "I need 2 things," I say, "hidden cameras and a recommendation." For what? A federal agent who still believes in the boring, unfashionable power of proof. He doesn't ask if I'm sure. He asks, "How soon?" Soon. 2 days of quiet can feel like peace or like a countdown. I choose the second so I won't be surprised. The cameras are in before noon. Pinhole eyes where no one will look. Microphones that drink sound without disturbing the air. I rehearse sentences on my walks, practicing how a woman on the edge might phrase her generosity, practicing how a mother might say she's ready to let her son help. When Riley calls to suggest a time to talk through the next steps, her voice is syrup. I give her Saturday, 7 p.m. I bake a pie and ruin it. I leave the stack of real estate prospectuses on the coffee table, just messy enough to read as neglect. I make a list of questions I know she wants me to ask. Then the buzzer sounds too early. I blink down at the monitor. It's Evan, alone. He's carrying the look of a man who hasn't slept inside his skin. "Mom, we need to talk," he says as soon as the door closes. He doesn't sit. "About your health." The line we were walking snaps and becomes a tightrope. "My health is fine," I say. "Riley's worried. She thinks you got dates confused. Mixed up conversations. You called me by Dad's name." He swallows. It scared her. "What would make you feel better?" I ask. The question costs me more than I let him see. "Just see a doctor. Her doctor, Dr. Adler. She specializes in seniors." "Her doctor?" I let the words land and go quiet in the carpet. I'd prefer to choose my own. He lifts a hand, drops it. "You're 73 years old and you live like this with a number like that," It's not normal. Shame touches his tone and jumps to mine. I don't know what to trust anymore. There it is. The reversal. Clean and sharp. The boy I love standing on Riley's script and not knowing it. I adjust on the wire. All right, I say, gentle as cotton. I'll see someone. I'll make some changes. I'll even talk about getting help with the accounts. Relief sags his shoulders. But first, I add, sit with me. Let me tell you what you don't know about why I worked the way I did. He listens until he can't. He leaves with a promise to text. The door clicks. The microphones keep their own counsel. I stand in the quiet and feel the burn in my cheek flare as if humiliation has a half-life. The phone vibrates. Mark again. You should see this, he says, and a secure link pings my screen. In the grainy still of a lunch crowd, Riley leans toward a woman in a navy suit I can name without hearing her introduction. A psychiatrist who sells diagnoses to people with better lawyers than consciences. Notes scroll, appointments scheduled, the crisp outline of a plan to put me under guardianship while I'm still signing checks and choosing shoes. I look at the photo until it loses resolution, then at the tiny black lens in the corner of my living room, and I smile a small, mean smile I haven't let myself use in years. If my son is walking toward a cliff, I will be the fence he curses before he realizes it held. Saturday waits, and so do I, awake, ready. The doorbell rings at 8:01 a.m., the sort of punctuality that wants applause. I'm still in my robe, coffee cooling, the city not yet fully awake when I check the monitor. Evan and Riley, balanced behind him with a white bakery box and the posture of a diplomat who knows the treaty's already signed. I breathe once, smooth once, open the door. Surprise! Riley sings, a half step too bright. We brought bagels. Protein is so important in the morning. Evan's smile is careful. Can we come in? I nod them through the narrow hall where framed photos turn toward us like witnesses. Riley has the bakery box and tucked under her elbow a 3-ring binder the color of fresh bruises, eggplant leather with a small gold plate that reads, Family Care. She sets the box down like a centerpiece and the binder like a deed. I made you something, she says. Just a little organizer. Everyone our age has a parent who needs a hand. It's normal. Evan doesn't look at the binder. He looks at me like he's checking my temperature through the whites of my eyes. We just want to help, Mom. I pour coffee, slice bagels, let the knife prove my hands steady. Steam does the talking until Riley can't stand the silence. So, she begins, flipping open the binder. This first section is medical. Medication specialists, copies of insurance cards, then financial, bills, bank accounts, your nice spreadsheets. Bless you. She adds with a laugh that wants to sound endearing. And then emergency contacts. Evan and I filled in what we know, but we'll need your help to complete it. She turns the binder toward me. Laminated tabs wink like lures. The financial section has tidy lines labeled account number, online login, password. There's a pocket with 2 forms printed in soft, therapeutic fonts. Durable power of attorney immediate and healthcare surrogate designation. A yellow sticky notes one. We can notarize today. Riley. Not today, I say, keeping my voice soft. Let's slow walk it. Of course, Riley says, unbothered. We can just start. Gathering. Password manager, maybe? Well, 1 password? It would be so helpful. I pick up a bagel half to buy myself a second. It would be helpful, I echo, and assemble cream cheese with the concentration of a surgeon stitching skin. But I'll have to dig up some papers. Things are in different places. Riley squeezes my forearm. That's why we're here. She maps out a week of light lift tasks, a meet and greet with her friend who can notarize at my kitchen table, a doctor appointment just to baseline things, a visit to my bank, to add view only on your accounts. Nothing scary. View only, I repeat, so you can see but not touch. Exactly, she says, and lets the word touch hang in the air like perfume. Evan stays quiet until the coffee is nearly gone. Then he clears his throat. Mom, there's an appointment tomorrow afternoon with Dr. Adler. She's very good. If you don't like her, we'll find someone else. I remember the grainy photo Mark sent. The lunch with the navy-suited psychiatrist and Riley leaning in like conspirators comparing spoils. I fold a napkin and unfold it. One appointment, I say, and I choose the second opinion. Evan exhales. Riley smiles the way a fisherman smiles at a tug on the line. They stay long enough to demonstrate care and short enough not to look like they're taking inventory. When the door closes, the apartment exhales with me. I text Mark one word. Bagels, he calls. How many forms? 2, DPOA and health surrogate, and a show-and-tell binder that wants my life to live in it. Jesus. Paper shuffles on his end. You still good for Adler tomorrow? I'm good. Camera's good. You? I'll have a guy in the cafe across the street with eyes, just in case the office has a side door I don't like. Understood. I look at the binder again, at the clean typography of a trap. Let's widen the net. Already did, he says, and hangs up to go where the interesting things are. Dr. Karen Adler looks like the expensive side of comfort. Cashmere cardigan, pearls that don't admit to being real, a voice designed for Sundays. Her waiting room smells like lemon and promise. A water feature tries to relax you into surrender. I sign my name with the deliberately hesitant hand we rehearsed and carry the clipboard like a small, breakable animal. You must be Dana, she says, rising from behind a desk that doesn't have a single paper on it. It's so nice to meet you. Her handshake is warm. Her eyes slide over my face and settle on the healing edge of my burn with the soft interest of a cat who doesn't pretend to be anything else. We talk in her office, 2 chairs angled toward a window that filters the city into kindness. She asks about sleep, appetite, friends, whether I've gotten lost in familiar places, whether I misplace words like I misplace keys. Her questions arrive like the tide, one soft push after another, until you notice the chair legs are in water. Let's do a quick screen, she says finally. Nothing scary, just a snapshot. She gives me 3 words to remember: table, violet, penny. She asks me to count backward by 7s, to draw a clock, to name the president. I answer most. I allow a blank look or two to fog the room. When she asks me to recall the 3 words, I offer 2. She smiles like we share a secret. Thank you, she says, pen moving. You're doing beautifully. Riley speaks very highly of you, I say, smoothing my skirt. You had lunch. Her pen pauses half a second, almost nothing, and then continues. I like to meet families where they are, she says. It helps to understand concerns. Of course. I look at the water feature. The little stream keeps doing its job without caring who watches. At the end, she leans forward, palms open. You're sharp, Dana. And also, there are small signs of mild cognitive changes. It's common. I'd recommend a full neuropsychological evaluation, just to have the data. In the meantime, having Evan and Riley assist with finances could reduce stress. Mild changes, I repeat, and I should let someone else help with money. For your peace of mind, she says, and her smile says, and for theirs. She prints something before I can ask what, slides a single page into a heavy envelope, seals it with the practiced care of someone who knows the weight of paper. This is for your primary care doctor, she says. Do you have one? I do. Baker and Rowe can be my primary care for today. She walks me to the door with the kind of warmth that thaws you just enough to walk into a colder day. I step into the hallway and breathe. Across the street, in the cafe, a man in a ball cap and a crossword doesn't look up when I pass. My phone buzzes. A text from Mark. Got it. I don't ask how. I don't ask what. I go home and try to remember how the clock from the test looked when I drew it. The first pinch arrives disguised as courtesy. My brokerage compliance department calls late afternoon with a voice that gets trained in seminars. Ms. Morgan, this is Kevin from Client Care. We received a notice from a treating physician expressing concern about potential cognitive changes. As a precaution, we've placed a temporary review hold on outgoing wires and transfers above $50,000 until we can complete a suitability check and speak with your designated contact. This is for your protection. Of course, I say, because yelling would be a gift. How long will the hold last? It's usually quick. He lies in a tone that hopes we'll never find one another in public. A week or two. We'll need a letter from your physician to clear it. Happy to email the details. When the email arrives, it's exactly the kind of thoughtful trap I would have designed 20 years ago. Policies, footnotes, comforting phrases. I read it twice and feel the old rage knocking to be let in. Instead, I call my bank manager, who sounds almost relieved to tell me they got a similar notice. "Dana, you know we love you," she says, taking the tone people take when they're about to betray you kindly. But when we receive a clinician's letter, we're obligated to be cautious. Let's schedule a time to talk and perhaps bring Evan. It might be easier. Easier for whom? I don't ask. I schedule a meeting I won't attend. I set the phone down, go to the kitchen, and stand very still. The clock on the stove says 4:11 p.m. The apartment is quiet enough to hear whatever is true. Mark arrives without knocking, 3 soft taps and then in. The way we do it when talking in the hall would be a mistake. He sees my face and doesn't ask. "Brokerage?" "And bank," I say. Adler moved fast. He nods toward the ceiling camera, then to the shelves where, if one were to look, one would find nothing. Good news. We have Adler on tape at lunch with Riley from last week. Bad news. It's a public place, not illegal. Doesn't prove collusion. What about the envelope she handed me? If there's language in there recommending power of attorney. "We'll get it," he says. But even then, the law allows doctors to recommend. She knows the edge she's walking. "Then we move the edge," I say, and hear steel in my mouth. He sits at the table and spreads photos like the worst tarot. The older men from Riley's past, the sudden lifestyle up-ramps, the short timelines. A blinking cursor on his phone suggests he's still downloading the morning's clinic footage. "There's another pattern," he says. "Every time she attaches herself to a man, within 60 days there's a transfer. Wedding costs reimbursement, investment seed, family loan, then a separation, no criminal complaint. Shame paperwork," he adds, tasting the phrase I used. I think of the binder, the soft fonts. "They'll come back today or tomorrow with a notary. Then we give them a document," he says, "one that reads too good to be true." I shake my head. No, not papers, words. I want her to say it out loud. I want the cameras to hear her want. He leans back, weighing risk against reward like he's done it for a living. "Okay, we bait with generosity. You talk about giving them something substantial, today, before any paperwork. We capture her pushing to formalize it while referencing your confusion and stress. We show intent. And then, I ask. Then we call Sarah," he says. "Used to be with Elder Fraud for the Bureau. Likes a clean audio file and hates pretty schemes." I let the name sit in the room. The last time I dealt with federal agents, men were threatening to shutter a strip mall I had bled into existence. Different decade, same muscle memory. "Not yet," I say. "We'll invite them to dinner first. I'll stage the gift, a wire I need help completing, a transfer I can't remember how to authorize." He nods, approving the architecture. "Saturday?" "Tonight," I say, and then reconsider the anger in my voice. "Tomorrow, let them think they're steering." He stands. "I'll tune the mics. Add one more in the hallway, and I'll move a car. If they get spooked, I want a second exit." "Thank you," I say, which is shorter than what I feel. They come back the next afternoon as if punctuality were a sacrament. Riley wears remorse like a new sweater. Evan carries tulips. The notary is a friend who was just in the neighborhood, a woman with a hard mouth and a low-slung tote that smells like ink. Only if we get to that, I say, letting my smile wobble strategically. I actually asked you here because I want to do something now. For you. For your future. Evan blinks. Riley recalibrates in a heartbeat. Dana, that's so generous, she says, and then, as if careful, but only if it doesn't stress you. It would relax me, I say, and let the syllables sink, letting go of a little responsibility, sharing it. I set my laptop on the table. Mark's software skin makes my banking site look and behave indistinguishably from the real one. It just doesn't move money. The numbers glow like they always do. I click to a page titled Transfers, and my hand trembles not at all. I thought, I say, that we'd start with a wedding gift, something meaningful. I name a number that makes Riley's throat work. Evan makes a sound that could be protest or awe. Mom, call it tuition for a life, I say, smiling at my son and letting the cameras drink the sentence. You choose how to use it. House, debt, business. Your decision. Riley's hand lands on Evan's knee, a reassuring little press. Dana, that's... Wow, maybe we should have a paper trail, she adds, like she's the cautious one. Not to be grabby, just to protect you. We could sign something acknowledging your generosity. And if you want, we can make the power of attorney immediate so we can finalize things without you worrying about the details while the bank does their checks. It would be so much easier. There it is. She said the words, immediate, finalize, easier. The cameras purr. I bite my lip not to smile. Let's see if I can even figure out the wire, I say, clicking. My brain's been... fuzzy. I type the wrong password first. I let the system bounce me. I muss my hair like I'm the problem. Riley leans so close I could count her pores. Let me, she says, soft and firm. I glance at Evan. He swallows, then nods. Just to help, Mom. Okay, I say, and lean back. Riley's fingers move with the practice speed of someone who has done this on other keyboards in other kitchens. When it comes time to enter the wire recipient, she reads out routing numbers from her phone as if she had them ready just in case generosity ever knocked. Is that your account? I ask, blinking innocently. One we share, she says without looking up. For household. Easiest way to... Easy again, I say, smiling. Her eyes flick to mine, then back to the screen. I let the progress bar crawl to 99%, then freeze in a loop that looks like a website problem. Riley taps the trackpad, taps again. It's glitching, she says, and annoyance cracks her lacquer. Sometimes older machines... Let's give it a minute, I say. The bank has been... cautious. Something about a hold. The tulips drop an inch in Evan's hands. A hold? Kevin from Client Care called, I say. He said they got a letter from a doctor about me. I didn't understand all of it. I look right at Riley when I say letter. She arranges her face into shock. It's almost good. How invasive, she says. That must feel awful. It does, I say, and make my voice smaller. Maybe we should wait. I don't want any problems. Riley's hand tightens on the mouse. No, we can fix it. If you give me power of attorney, I can talk to them and explain. It will be easier, she says again, as if the word could substitute for permission. We can get it notarized now. 30 minutes. Evan looks at me with open conflict on his face. Mom, it's just a form. You can revoke it. Forms are gravity in certain rooms. You can always revoke gravity eventually, after you've fallen and broken something you need. I hold his gaze and think of every scraped knee, every spelling test that made him furious enough to cry. Why don't we do this? You both come to dinner tomorrow. We'll sign whatever papers my lawyer draws up. And I'll call a doctor I trust for a second opinion. I would like to feel sure. Riley simmers and covers it with a smile. Of course. Tomorrow's perfect. They don't bring the notary back from the hall. They gather their things. At the door, Riley kisses my cheek like a daughter and whispers, "We'll take care of you." She means the future tense as a threat. When they're gone, I wait for the elevator doors to close before I speak. Everything? I ask the corner of the room. Everything, Mark says from the hallway where he's been a shadow. He steps in and texts. Audio's clean, video's better. I've got immediate, finalize, and power of attorney tagged, and an account number I'd like to run by a friend at FinCEN. Do it, I say, and call your agent, Lynn. He raises an eyebrow. Tomorrow, I clarify. After dinner, I'm not walking into federal hands with just a willingness to be believed. I want to hand her a recording that will make her day. He smiles the small, feral smile that gets him through long nights. Dinner needs props. I've got props. I show him the stack of manila envelopes on my desk, each labeled deed copies, trust summaries, titles. The envelopes are full of paper that looks meaningful and means nothing. Mock-ups, Baker and Rose paralegals ran for me years ago to test a scanning vendor. I kept them because I keep everything that might be useful someday. Today is someday. Dress rehearsal? He asks. Yes. I walk through the choreography, where we'll sit, where my laptop will live, where the mics catch the best, how I'll present a letter of intent, gifting them some contingent on nothing but my affection, how they'll reach for something bigger and uglier, because greed never accepts retail when wholesale is on the table. We rehearse my lines until the words feel like muscle memory. When Mark leaves, the apartment holds the shape of him for a minute, then gives it up to the shape of my resolve. The phone buzzes at 9:37 p.m. Evan, thank you for today. Tomorrow's good. I type and delete 3 different versions of I love you. I settle on, sleep well. Tomorrow will make things clear. Morning brings nerves wrapped in routines. I bake a roast I won't ruin this time, set the table with the good plates, and choose a dress that says I am old enough to have money and young enough to move it. The city outside behaves like it always does. Horns, footsteps, a siren far away stitching urgency into someone else's afternoon. At noon, Baker and Rowe returns my call. We can send a junior attorney to observe, the partner offers, but I'd prefer we draft anything you sign. No documents today, I say. Just dinner. I'll need you on call tomorrow morning. For what? For making sure a bank hears the word fraud in a voice they can't ignore. He is silent for a beat. Understood. At 5, Mark texts a photo. Riley in a salon chair, foil in her hair, scrolling with a tight mouth. The caption reads, thinking face. I feel a small, bad joy that I'm not proud of. At 6:40, I light 2 candles I'll blow out if anyone comments. At 6:59, the elevator dings. Evan kisses my cheek. Riley brings wine and the sort of smile women reserve for men with boats. We sit. We eat. We talk about weather and a neighbor's yappy dog. The roast is perfect, and I hate how much pride I feel handing my son a plate that tastes like childhood. When plates are cleared and coffee poured, I open a manila envelope and lay the letter of intent on the table. My hand shakes just enough to make me lovable. This is what I'd like to do, I say, first person singular carrying more heat than it should. It's not legal anything, just a note for us, a promise. Tomorrow, after I talk to my lawyer and a second doctor, we can make it official. I slide the paper toward Riley. The cameras lean in with her. She reads rapidly, then slower. This is generous, she says. But if you're sure, we can just notarize this and... No, I say, gentle and final. Tomorrow, with counsel. She lifts her eyes and lets me see what she doesn't show Evan. Calculation, impatience, a small contempt for the old woman who thinks she's still playing offense. She smooths it over so quickly I could doubt I saw it if I didn't trust the part of me that once built a company by hearing what men didn't say. Of course, she murmurs. Tomorrow. She reaches for her tote. In the meantime, could you just sign this? It appoints Evan and me as temporary agents so we can speak to the bank about removing that hold. It's nothing. It just makes the call go easier. It's printed in another soft font. I tilt it toward the light, letting the mics drink the silence. Temporary, I read aloud, because our future may sit on that adverb. The text underneath says immediate and durable and full powers in language that would give a judge a reason to lean his elbows on the bench. Just until tomorrow, she coos. Just until tomorrow, I echo, and lift my eyes to my son. Evan? He's sweating above his upper lip the way he did when he was 5 and lying about breaking a lamp. It's just, I know what it is, I say, and I know what it could be. I put the pen down. Tomorrow. Riley smiles with all her teeth. Tomorrow, she agrees, but the word sounds like a verdict she's already rescheduled. When they leave, Evan hangs back in the hall. Thank you, he says, softer than he's spoken to me since the reception. For trying. For loving you, I say. There's no try in that. Riley calls from the elevator. He squeezes my hand once, quick, furtive, then goes. The door clicks shut. I stand very still, listening to the building hold its breath. Then I turn to the corner where the little black lens blinks its invisible blink. Mark, I say into the quiet, call Agent Lynn. Tell her we have a dinner tape she's going to like. And tell her to bring a warrant folder big enough for a binder. Agent Sarah Lynn is not what TV promised me. No trench coat, no dramatic badge flash. Just a woman in a charcoal blazer whose eyes take inventory the second she steps into my living room. Mark holds the door, then fades to the window like he's always been part of the trim. Ms. Morgan, she says, hand firm, face unhurried. I'm Sarah. I pour coffee because good manners are a kind of armor. She asks for none of the cream or sugar I set out anyway. She makes a small sound at the cameras, approval, not judgment, then gets to work the way surgeons do, calmly, as if time isn't oxygen. Let me say the key things first, she says, notebook closed but ready. Elder financial exploitation is a priority area. Your recordings are helpful, but without intent, hers, not yours, everything's slower. We need clean statements from them, not just pressure. And we need to move before an emergency guardianship tries to outrun us. Emergency guardianship? I ask, though I've already imagined the paperwork. Ex parte petitions, she says, one-sided. A clinician's note, a story about confusion, a concerned spouse. A judge can grant temporary authority before you even hear the knock on your door. Then banks freeze, apartments unlock, and you're the trespasser in your own life until a hearing says otherwise. I sit straighter, the way pain makes you good posture's disciple. So we stop the knock. We build a better one, she says. Do you consent to be recorded on a pretext call with your daughter-in-law? You'll ask clear questions. You'll invite them to say the quiet parts out loud. You'll tell them you're recording for your memory. She nods at the lens in the corner. In this state, one-party consent is sufficient, but we'll get her to consent anyway. She'll do it, I say, because Riley has never met a microphone she didn't think she could charm. Sarah looks at Mark. I'll also need the clinic information, Adler, and the bank contact who mentioned the hold. Mark hands her a neat packet like a magician revealing his second trick. Clinic name, NPI, fax number, he says, brokerage compliance contact and email, bank manager. We also have lunch photos, Adler and the bride, last Thursday, 12:42 to 1:28, camera on 2nd and Pine. Sarah flips the packet once, quick. Useful for context, as Ms. Morgan knows, not proof of wrongdoing. Her gaze returns to me. We'll send preservation letters this morning so no one gets creative with records. We'll work with financial crimes on parallel subpoenas, but it helps if we can show a judge why we need speed. I can give you speed, I say. They're coming back tonight. Sarah's pen ticks. For what? Dinner, a second attempt, more paper, a notary in a tote bag. Good, she says. Let's go get your consent call now while the day is young and they're careless. We work the script at my kitchen table. Sarah edits like a person who's listened to 1,000 liars forget which word tripped them. She hands me a yellow legal pad with an outline that reads like a grocery list of traps. I'm recording this from my memory, okay? Wait for yes. Clarify bank hold. Ask, what do you need from me today to finalize the wire? Ask, what authority do you want? What does immediate mean? Ask, which account should I use? Yours or the one you share with Evan? Ask, what do we tell the bank if they ask about my memory? At the bottom, she's drawn a tiny box and written, say less than they do. Keep your questions clean, she says. Let her fill silence. Don't argue. Don't perform smarts. We're not trying to show you clever. We're trying to show her intent. We test my voice. I pitch it softer, let a little breath in, the way women do when they want men to explain how doors work. Mark watches, mouth a straight line, as if he wants to apologize to the timeline for how long it took to get here. Sarah dials. The phone sits between us like a cuff we all agree to wear. When Riley answers, her tone is sunshine poured over a fence. Dana, we were just talking about dinner. We'll bring dessert. I'm looking forward to it, I say, and then I step into the line we drew. Before I forget the details, I'm going to record this so I remember what you said, okay? A beat. 2. Then, of course, that's such a good idea. Consent, crisp as a bell. I got a call from the brokerage yesterday, I say. They mentioned a hold, something about a letter from a doctor. I let confusion tint the edges. Can you walk me through what you need from me today to finalize the wire? Oh, sure, she says, too casual. It's annoying, but typical. Banks get twitchy anytime a doctor mentions cognitive. We can fix it. If you name us as agents, durable, immediate, we'll talk to them so they stop bothering you, and we'll handle the transfer. You don't need to worry. Durable, immediate. Handle the transfer. Sarah's pen moves once and stops. Mine stays still. What does immediate mean? I ask. I'm not a lawyer. It just means it works now, she says. Sweet as a bell you don't notice until it's ringing behind your ear. Not when you're incapacitated. That way we can finalize the wire even if compliance drags their heels. Otherwise, you'll be on the phone all day. At your age? No. What account should I use? I ask. Yours or the one you and Evan share? The joint one, she says without a breath. It's easier to explain to a bank if they ask. Spouses, family. You can say it's a household gift. What do we tell them about my memory? I ask, and I'm proud of how small I sound. That you're being proactive, she says, laughter like tinkling glass. That you're reducing stress by delegating. That's language they like. Don't mention confusion, it just slows things down. Sarah raises her eyebrows one notch. That's the only applause I get. I'll need a notary, I say. Who do you use? I'll bring someone, Riley says. She does half my clients. She's discreet. Clients. Good. The pen ticks again. I layer in one last piece. I wrote a simple letter for tonight. Just a promise. So we all remember what I said. We can add your names? Maybe the bank will like seeing it? That's perfect, she says, and I can hear her smile. I'll bring sticky notes so we don't forget what goes where. Sticky notes. Mark's breath leaves his nose in a wordless, tempted laugh. We hang up. The room holds the outline of her through the speaker for a beat, then gives it up to the noise of the street. Sarah doesn't smile. She doesn't have to. That, she says, is gold. What now? I ask. Now I send preservation letters. Clinic, brokerage, bank. We'll request call logs, appointment notes, recorded lines. I'll write an affidavit while the recorder's timestamps are warm. She slides her chair back. What she said about immediate and handle the transfer, combined with your bank's hold, lets me move a judge for an emergency records order if I need it. Tonight you get her hand on something she wrote or signed. Bonus points if we see her initials near the words immediate or durable. And if she tries to notarize a document that misstates your capacity, don't stop her. Let her say the words into the air. I nod. My lawyer? Have them on deck tomorrow, she says. I'll coordinate with our AUSA. You'll sleep here tonight. Lock the door. If someone shows with a petition, you text Mark and me and say nothing but call my counsel. Understood? Understood, I say. It tastes like steel and citrus in my mouth. Agent Lynn? Yes. Thank you for talking to me like I'm not made of glass. She lifts one shoulder, a hint of humor. You're not. The knock arrives at noon because villains love lunch. Mark opens the door before I can. A man with the cuffs of his shirt too white for his shoes holds a folded sheaf like a dinner check he can't wait to present. Dana Morgan? He asks. That depends who's asking, Mark says. Process server, he replies, pleased to know the password. Ex parte petition for temporary guardianship. Hearing set for 5 days from now. Also a notice of a wellness check this afternoon from Adult Protective Services. Leave them, Mark says, and shuts the door without scenery. He puts the papers on my dining table like a specimen. I read fast, the way you do when the content wants to drown you. The petition quotes Dr. Adler. Mild cognitive changes, concern about executive functioning, recommendation to delegate finances. It quotes Riley. Confusion, misdirected emails, unsafe communication with banks. It suggests I called Evan by his father's name. True once, years ago, chasing a memory that didn't want to be caught. It asks the court to appoint an emergency guardian, preferably a family member, to ensure Ms. Morgan's safety. My hands are steady. My heart isn't. I wonder if Riley believes enough of this to sleep at night. Mark texts Sarah a photo. The reply arrives before the phone returns to the table. Expected, don't engage, record any contact. I won't answer the wellness check, I say. You can, Mark says, but you won't do it alone. At 2:30, a knock, a badge, and a woman with the tired kindness of nurses and social workers everywhere appear. We're just checking in, the woman says. Her voice is gentle because the system is not. We received a concern about possible vulnerability. I'm surrounded by people who love me, I say, and invite them into my clean kitchen with the roast pan drying neat in the rack. I offer water in a glass, not a mug, because small choices cast votes. I answer questions with care. Yes, I shop. No, I don't drive much. Yes, I manage my bills. Yes, someone is trying to help me. And yes, I'm evaluating whether that help is helpful. When she asks if I'm in danger, I hold her eyes and say, no, not while we're talking. They leave with a form checked no further action at this time. The door closes on their sigh. Mark's mouth is a tighter line. They're accelerating, he says. So do we, I say. Tonight we give them the rope. I choose a restaurant that thinks too highly of its candles. Private room, a waiter who sees without condescending. Mark sits 3 tables away in a blazer that lets him be furniture. Sarah isn't here. She'll never compromise an investigation with proximity, but I can feel the clean line of her plan like a hand at my back. Evan and Riley arrive with a notary who's dressed like a whisper. I stand to hug my son. He holds me longer than I expect and then releases fast, like he's embarrassed by his own loyalty. Beautiful, Riley says of the room, head tilted. We shouldn't have. We should always have, I say, and watch her try to calculate what that means. Wine, bread, a shared appetizer that no one pays attention to. When the plate's clear, I take out the letter of intent and the fountain pen I haven't used since contracts meant what they promised. This is what I'd like to do, I say. A promise for us. Tomorrow, lawyers can translate it into their language. Tonight, you can write your full names and your mailing address here. I indicate the bottom right corner, so my accountant knows where to send anything official. Riley's mouth says demure. Her hand says sprint. She writes her name and Evan's, then their address, then, unprompted, underlines it and adds a phone number and the words, joint household account for gifts, with the last 3 digits of the account number, as if we were filling out a registry. The pen blots once, a small blue comet. Perfect, I say, just shy of too warm. And to avoid confusion, could you note... I push a second sheet forward, a receipt for gift acknowledgement. Language a paralegal assembled to look like it hatched in the accountant pen of God, that you've asked me to make the transfer via your joint account today, and that you'll serve as my immediate agents for any bank correspondence? I add lightly, so I don't have to be on hold. Riley doesn't look at Evan. She reads for form, not for meaning, then signs Riley North, the 2 words like a card she's proud to throw. Do you want me to initial next to immediate? She asks, pen poised. Please, I say. She writes RN and dots it with a tiny heart I would pay money to erase. Evan hesitates, eyes moving the way a man's eyes move when a story he loves is losing its spine. Evan? I ask. He signs. The pen looks heavy. The notary stamps the page with a sure, wet thunk, ink smelling like finality. I want to stand and shout, here is your intent, here is your greed. I want to throw the paper in the air and watch truth flutter down like confetti. Instead, I smile and say, dessert? Riley laughs, relieved the tripwire didn't cut her dress. You are a delight. We eat cake none of us taste. The notary leaves, efficient as smoke. The waiter brings the check and sets it at my elbow. Riley is quick to half stand, then quicker to sit. At the door, she squeezes my hands. You won't regret this, she says, and the words sound like a threat dressed as gratitude. Tomorrow, I say. 10 a.m., my lawyer's office. Perfect, she says. And then, to Evan, as if I cannot hear, we'll swing by the bank at 9, warm them up. They go. The elevator swallows them whole. Mark's hand is on my shoulder before the waiter finishes collecting crumbs. We got it, he says. Audio, clear, video, angles good. Her initials next to immediate, and she added account info unsolicited. I hold the letter without creasing it. Call Sarah. He does. I listen to his side. Yes, on tape. Yes, consented. Yes, notarized language. Yes, timeline. When he hangs up, the little smile he saves for hard-won wins touches his mouth. She says, and I quote, that's the pivot. We're moving. I don't sleep. I rest like a cat, one eye on the street. The city keeps its promises. Sirens, drunken laughter, an early trash truck groaning like an old man. At 6, Sarah texts, heading to the AUSA now. Hold position. Do not attend any bank visit without counsel. At 8, Evan calls. I let the first ring run out, then pick up on the second because I've always believed in second chances. Mom, we're going to stop by the bank, he says, voice bright with the energy of a man who thinks today will simplify his life. Just to explain, then we'll head to the lawyer. No, I say gently. You will meet me at Baker & Rowe at 10. We'll call the bank from a conference room with a speakerphone that records. Silence expands between us like a gel. Riley said, Riley will have to adjust, I say, and I hear the steel in my voice surprise us both. Is this because of that petition? Mom, she filed because she cares. She filed because she's in a hurry, I say, and I let the edge show just enough to cut the rope he's holding. 10 o'clock, Evan. I will be there with my counsel. If you're late, we'll proceed without you. He inhales a sound that wants to be anger and lands as doubt. Okay, he says finally. 10. I hang up and breathe in the empty air. Mark brings coffee I do not drink. At 9:20, my phone lights with a number I don't know. A brokerage compliance line, recorded. I put it on speaker. Ms. Morgan, this is Kevin. I wanted to let you know we received a call from a Ms. North identifying herself as your agent, along with a faxed power of attorney. We can't accept it without verification, of course, but do not accept it at all, I say, clear and slow. I do not grant her any authority. Please note that this call is recorded on my end as well. My counsel will be in touch this morning." He coughs up a "certainly," then tries a more careful ending. "Our aim is your protection." "Mine too," I say, and we end the choreography. At 9:45, the elevator delivers me to a conference room that smells like paper and fights. The managing partner shakes my hand, says the right words, and sits. At 10:05, Evan and Riley walk in, carrying apology like a cake someone baked with the sugar wrong. "We stopped by the bank," Riley begins. "And they decline to proceed," I finish, "because they care about process." I indicate the phone in the center of the table. "Let's call together." The partner dials. The banker answers with the voice people take when lawyers are on the line. We identify ourselves. The conversation is recorded and stated as such. I authorize no one. I confirm awareness of a hold. I state that any letters from any doctors are under review. Riley tries to wedge her way into the call like a hurry with a haircut. As Ms. Morgan's agent, "You are not her agent," the partner says in a tone judges enjoy hearing from our side of the bar. "Not today." She sits. For the first time, I watch her think, without something to do with her hands. It's almost human. The call ends on terms I can live with. Review pending, no wires, a compliance meeting scheduled for Thursday to discuss. The partner hangs up and turns to Riley the way a teacher turns to a bright child who's disruptive. "We're also aware a petition was filed," he says. "We'll respond. Would you like to withdraw it now or wait for the hearing?" Color rises under her makeup and then recedes. "We'll wait," she says, composing her face into firm concern. "We're only trying to make sure Dana is safe." "If that's true," the partner says mildly, "stop attempting to exercise authority you do not have." Evan flinches. Riley smiles. "Of course." When they leave, the partner leans back and steeples his fingers in a way that would annoy me if it weren't so useful. "You have excellent material," he says, indicating the copies, marks slid across the table, the consent call transcript, the notarized acknowledgement, with her initials by immediate, the note about household account. "We'll coordinate with the U.S. Attorney's Office so we're not tripping the same wires." As if summoned, Sarah steps into the conference room. She carries the kind of folder that changes afternoons. "Judge signed 2 orders, she says, placing them gently on the table. "Preservation for the clinic and the brokerage. And," she taps the second, "an order permitting us to obtain subscriber and transaction information for the joint account Ms. North identified on your recording. We're on the clock." "What do you need from me?" I ask. "Stay ordinary," she says. "No surprises, no big moves. We want them to step toward us because the path looks like the one they paved." "What about the hearing?" I ask. 5 days. "We'll be there," she says. "We'll bring transcripts. We'll bring the notary. We'll bring Kevin if we have to." The partner smiles slow. "That might be fun." Sarah ignores the aside. "The midpoint on these cases is always the same," she says to me. "They realize you're not their story's narrator. They either escalate or cut their losses. If she escalates, she makes mistakes. If she cuts, she leaves a trail. Either way, we shorten the distance between suspicion and charge." I nod. The room fills with the quiet that comes when adults have a plan. "And Evan?" I ask, though I know the answer. Sarah's face softens in the way law enforcement faces don't, usually. "He'll have to pick his way through his guilt on his own timeline. Your job is to leave him a bridge." Mark walks me to the elevator when it's over. The hall smells like lemon cleaner and copies. We stand a long second before the doors open. "You did it," he says. "No," I say, with a strange, light honesty. "We did what the day asked." He nods like that's the password for easier sleep. The doors slide open on a small old elevator that always grumbles at the weight of certainty. I step in. The mirror returns a woman who is smaller than the size of her courage and larger than the shape of her fear. My phone buzzes on the ride down. A text from Evan. Can we talk alone tonight? Please. I don't know if alone means without Riley or without Law. I don't know if he wants to yell or apologize or ask me to choose him and lose my case. I only know I will always choose him and refuse his terms if they hurt him. It's the paradox of motherhood and a decent legal strategy. I type, yes, 7, the cafe on 3rd. The elevator doors open to a city that doesn't care about my pivot point. That's all right. The story does. Tonight, I'll be kind if I can. Tomorrow, I'll be useful if I must. And when the knock comes again, it will be ours. The cafe on 3rd smells like burnt sugar and old arguments. I choose the corner booth with the good angle on the door and the bad angle for tears. Evan arrives with his hands in his pockets, which is how he walks when he doesn't know who he is yet. Thanks for meeting me, he says, not sitting until I nod. The rain outside refuses to be theatrical. It's just weather, doing its job. Of course, I say, because there are only 2 words that ever come out of my mouth first where he's concerned. He orders nothing. I order tea to give my hands something to do. He watches the steam like it's a problem he can solve with heat. Riley says you're trying to criminalize her, he begins, softening the word with the kind of politeness that puts a hand over a flame instead of blowing it out. She says you're recording her, that you called the feds. I'm protecting myself, I say. And you. His mouth pulls to one side like he's trying to move a tooth with his tongue. She filed the petition to protect me from stress. She's worried you'll cut me out, that you'll use your money to control us. I inhale once and let it out slow. Evan, I invited you to a lawyer's office with a speakerphone that announced it was recording. Your wife tried to present a power of attorney you know I didn't sign. She hired a notary for dessert. He flinches, and I hate how intimately I know his smallest tells. The way guilt travels up his neck, the way shame flushes the tips of his ears. She's doing what she thinks is right. You missed so much. You didn't show up, and now you want to show up with cameras. I let his hurt live in the room. I don't rush to tidy it. I work to keep us safe, I say, level, and I'm working now to keep you safe from a mistake that will cost you more than any game I ever missed. He looks away. The server sets my tea down and evaporates. When he looks back, his eyes are bright with the sort of wet that pretends it will behave. You always talk like that, he says. Like the choices are hard but obvious. Like you're the only one who sees the cliff. Because I've fallen off too, I say, before I can decide to keep that to myself. And I learned what the ground feels like. I won't let you learn it the same way. He is quiet long enough for the tea to go from hot to drinkable. I love her, he says finally, a sentence that explains nothing and everything. I know, I say. So do I. He blinks. I love the woman my son loves, enough to tell the truth about her when you can't. He stands without scraping the chair. You make everything a strategy. No, I say, and the word is small. I make it survivable. He leans on the edge of the table with both hands and looks down at me the way men look down at the map when they've decided to drive through the storm. If it's between you and my wife, he says carefully, like he's choosing a wire to cut, I choose my wife. The sentence opens my chest the way a cracked rib opens a breath, slow, unavoidable, intimate with pain. I nod once because the alternative is falling apart, and I've already hired a woman to make sure I do that with counsel present. Okay, I say. I'm still choosing you. He leaves. The door chimes. The rain continues. The server refills a cup I didn't touch. I sit in the corner booth where my son ended our century-old argument and let the ache live where it needs to live. In my ribs, in my jaw, in the little muscles that keep memory from turning feral. When I finally stand, I text Mark one word, choice. He replies, understood. Come home. Agent Lynn doesn't come to my apartment that afternoon because Agent Lynn doesn't do comfort calls. She sends a message instead, precise as a scalpel. Hearing still set for Friday. Preservation letters served. Clinic acknowledged. Brokerage acknowledged. Bank acknowledged. Joint account data request in process. Hold position. Holding position feels like asking a hurricane to wait in the hall. I clean my kitchen in circles. I put the letter of intent back in its envelope and then take it out again to confirm that Riley's initials still look like a heart that thinks it's a period. I water a plant I only remember when I need something alive to forgive me. At 5:30, Mark knocks the agreed knock and lets himself in. He takes one look at my face and doesn't force anything to be easier than it is. "Lynn's moving," he says. The AUSA drafted a notice to the probate court about the federal interest in any guardianship. Translation: do not grant without hearing from us. It's not binding, but judges don't like stepping on federal toes. Riley will like being told no even less, I say. He smiles without humor. Then she'll escalate. Which we planned for. He sits, opens a folder, and becomes the man who underlines bad news so it behaves. Clinic records show Adler scheduled you for a neuropsych eval next week. Lynn got the appointment logs. Someone from Riley's number texted the clinic the day after your first visit. Need letter ASAP for court. Emphasize executive function plus finances. TAX. Clinic replied, we don't usually... And then, later the same day, sent a letter with phrases that look very familiar. Executive function, I say, tasting the way the words want to be helpful until they're not. Lynn's requesting the metadata, Mark says. If the doc tailored language at a non-patient's request, that's a good day for us. What about the account? I ask. FinCEN flagged prior activity in the joint account. Same pattern Lynn's seen in other cases. Incoming transfers marked gift or family loan, out within 48 hours to 2 or 3 vendor names that don't match household expenditures. One of those vendors is a shell that popped on a previous SAR. Different guy, same neighborhood. Lynn's people are following the thread. It's useful in the way rain is useful. You're grateful it exists, and also, you're still wet. I rub my thumb along the edge of the envelope until the paper warms. At 7:30, the building's intercom buzzes like a mosquito with a law degree. 2 voices filter through, one official, one earnest. Adult Protective Services, the woman says, kinder than the buzzer. We're following up on a report. And Officer Jennings, the man adds, a polite bass. Mark's shoulders rise half an inch, then settle. We knew a second check might come, he says. Let's make it boring. We let them in. They are kind in the professional way that comes from work that eats kindness for breakfast. The APS worker glances at my clean surfaces and my steady steps the way a seamstress checks a hemline. Trained, quick, without becoming the dress. The officer is a presence more than a problem. We received a concern about possible exploitation, she says gently. Allegations that financial decisions are being made under pressure, that there's confusion. I am under pressure, I say. From a woman who would like to be in charge of my money. I'm not confused. Her eyes flick just once to the camera in the corner. Mark's installation has a way of being obvious only to people who know what to see. Do you have someone you trust we can note as a contact? She asks. Baker and Rowe, I say. And Agent Lynn. The officer's eyebrows move a millimeter. People don't say the second part unless they can back it up. They ask me if I feel safe. I say yes. They ask if anyone is withholding medication, mail, money. I say no. They ask if I consent to a brief look at the kitchen and the bedroom to confirm I live where I sleep. I let them. They make a note about my burn healing well. They leave with a form that says no imminent risk, follow-up is needed. When the door closes, Mark exhales like he'd been holding his breath for both of us. I don't realize I've been steadying myself against the table until I feel the edge in my palm. At some point, I say, I would like to stop performing stability for strangers. Soon, Mark says, and I hear the promise for what it is, a hope with a plan. Thursday arrives dressed like a normal day and then changes in the hallway. The brokerage schedules a suitability meeting for the afternoon. The bank proposes Friday morning to revisit the hold, and the probate court clerk emails a note moving tomorrow's hearing from 2 p.m. to 9 a.m., as if urgency needed an earlier chair. Baker and Rowe replies with the kind of politeness that only money buys. Sarah calls from a car somewhere that smells like upholstery and speed. "We have enough for a knock and talk with the notary," she says. Our guys will ask about the temporary language on the form. Sometimes people who sell signatures sell stories, too. "What does a knock and talk do?" I ask. "Two things," she says. "It preserves genuine confusion for the small fish if we need testimony later, and it tells the big fish the water is changing temperature." She pauses. I hear pages move across her lap, a traffic blinker doing math. "Dana," she says, and I know the next sentence is both kindness and command. Don't meet them anywhere that's not public today. They'll either try to charm you into one last signature or make noise to shake you. Either way, we want witnesses that aren't just our cameras. "Understood," I say. At noon, Mark sends a photo from down the block. Riley in the lobby of my bank, laughing at something invisible while she holds a tote big enough to carry the Constitution. 10 minutes later, he sends another. Riley leaving with a mouth like a paper cut. The caption says, "Told no." The bank calls me immediately after, all friendly reflex. "Ms. Morgan, your daughter-in-law stopped by to check on the hold. We explained that we need to speak with you and your counsel. Would you like to move your appointment to this afternoon?" "No," I say gently. "Tomorrow morning is fine." I want the paper trail to exist on a day when judges are in the building. At 1, my phone vibrates with a message that isn't a number I know. It's a video. For a half second, my thumb hovers over delete because I don't feed myself poison when I can help it. Then I recognize my own hallway and Riley's voice on the other side of the door, pitched to a pitch-perfect upset. "Dana, it's me. We're worried. Evan said you left the stove on." The clip is cut. There's no context. Someone, Riley or someone she knows who charges by the hour, has trimmed it to sound like I'm refusing care. She's baiting me into responding in writing, into saying anything that can be sliced and served cold to a judge who skipped lunch. I put the phone down. I sit on my hands until the urge to answer hard turns into the ache of not answering. Then I forward the video to Mark and Sarah without a subject line, like an offering. Sarah replies, "Nice try, do not engage." Mark replies, "Check your door camera timestamp. You were on the phone with me then." Our small, ordinary alibis matter. I still feel the old angry helplessness, the one that thrums under your skin when someone tells a clean lie and dares you to make it dirty. At 3, we have the brokerage meeting. It's a conference room the color of HR policies. The compliance guy, Kevin of recorded phone call fame, does the apologetic shuffle professionals do when they have to remind you they know your middle name. "Ms. Morgan, thanks for your patience," he says. "We just need to confirm a few items, then we'll reevaluate the hold." He smiles at my lawyer like they went to very different schools. Baker and Rowe's associate, a woman with shoulders that say, "Don't try me," arranges her notes with a neatness that comforts me. "We are recording," she says, because she likes to say true things twice. Kevin asks the questions he's required to ask. Do I understand my portfolio? Can I describe my sources of income? Do I know the difference between a wire and an ACH? Can I name my current beneficiary designations? I answer in full sentences that do not audition for sainthood. When he asks if anyone has pressured me to transfer funds, I say, "My daughter-in-law has asked me to wire a sum to an account she controls and to sign a durable power of attorney. I declined both." Kevin does the blink that belongs to men who wish they worked in e-commerce instead. He says, "Thank you," and something about internal processes and time frame. We leave him with the certainty that every word he said lives in 3 places now. On the sidewalk, the day is bright in the rude way of days that know you need shade. Mark joins us long enough to say, "Notary sang." "What tune?" I ask. Riley said it was urgent. Dana was sweet but confused. I just stamped what they brought me. She saved her texts, and Lynn photographed them. One gem. "Can we make it sound temporary? She spooks at big words." The notary asked, "Same form as last time?" which is the part we'll gift wrap for the AUSA. "Last time?" The words arrive like a cold front. "Different client," Mark says. "Same play." We walk the rest of the block in the quiet that comes after a piece clicks into a puzzle you hoped was missing a piece. Friday begins at 9 a.m. in a courtroom that has seen 100 years of urgency dress like routine. The walls are the color of calm. The benches are the shape of penance. The judge wears his robe the way some men wear grief, habitually with care. Riley is there with a lawyer whose hair is better than his judgment. Evan sits one seat behind her, hands clasped like prayer without a god. Baker and Rowe flanks me, their pens poised like cutlery. The gallery holds a few bored observers and one man in a ball cap who is no one but will become someone later when Mark tells me where he likes to sit. Cases before ours hum past. A guardianship for a woman who forgot her way home too many times. A motion about a son who wants to be paid for loving his dad. Our docket number sounds like a room you don't want to enter. The judge reads the petition with his mouth going flat on certain phrases. He asks Riley's lawyer to speak. The man rises with the confidence of someone who practices sincerity, like scales. "Your Honor, this is a family matter," he says. Ms. North brings this petition reluctantly, out of concern. There is evidence of mild cognitive decline. There are financial decisions that raise red flags. Ms. Morgan is vulnerable. We seek temporary guardianship so bills are paid and predators are kept at bay. "Which predators?" the judge asks, bored enough to be dangerous. "Unscrupulous advisors," the lawyer says, remembering the existence of plural nouns. Baker and Rowe's partner stands like a doorframe. "Your Honor, there's also evidence that Ms. North is attempting to obtain immediate, durable authority over Ms. Morgan's finances and to direct a significant wire to an account she controls. We have recordings, notarized documents with Ms. North's initials next to immediate, an acknowledgement of a joint account to be used today. We request the petition be denied or at minimum deferred pending review." Riley's lawyer starts to object. The judge lifts a hand and the objection dies like a fly in winter. "Is there a criminal investigation?" the judge asks, bland as oatmeal. Baker and Rowe glances at the back of the room for exactly the amount of time it takes for Agent Lynn to stand just enough to be seen and sit just enough not to argue jurisdiction with a robe. "Yes, Your Honor," the partner says. "There is federal interest." The judge breathes once through his nose, a small bull in a small arena. "Miss North," he says, looking over his glasses, "do you love your mother-in-law?" Riley tilts her head to the angle where lies look like pearls. "Very much," she says. "Good," he says. "Then you'll be pleased with my order. Petition for temporary guardianship denied. A capacity evaluation may be scheduled by Ms. Morgan's chosen physician within 30 days. No party shall attempt to exercise any authority over Ms. Morgan's accounts without further order. And if I hear that anyone is pressuring anyone to sign anything, I will set a hearing you will not enjoy." The gavel is a soft thing, not the TV crack. It still makes a sound that lands in your bones. Riley keeps her face steady, but her lawyer's left eye twitches as if a gnat just chose him. Evan looks at me like he wants to stand and come sit on my bench again just long enough to smell safety. He doesn't. Riley leans and says something into his shoulder shaped like loyalty. We exit into the hallway where justice goes to stretch. Agent Lynn materializes as if she has always been part of the molding. Good, she says, meaning the order. Now we tighten. What does tightening look like? I ask. Warrants this afternoon for the joint account subscriber info and outgoing transfers, she says. A subpoena on the notary for prior similar stamps. A voluntary interview for Dr. Adler that she will not like. Will Riley know? I ask. She'll feel it, Lynn says. People like her always feel the weather change. A man in a ball cap murmurs something into his sleeve at the far end of the corridor, then leaves. Mark watches him go and then looks at me, the question in his eyes. Are you okay, boss? I'm functional, I say, because that's the closest thing to okay that tells the truth. Evan lingers a few paces away, 2 hands in his pockets again. I wait inside my breath. He walks toward me, stops at the distance where a hug would start if the world were simpler. I didn't know about the notary, he says, voice thinned by the acoustics of consequence. I thought it would calm you down. I don't need calming, I say. I need you. He looks at the floor. I can't. He shakes his head once, as if negation could be enough. Riley says. We both know what she says, I reply, not with anger, but with the exhaustion that comes from cataloging. What do you say? He opens his mouth, closes it, and then, because he is my son, he chooses a smaller honesty over a larger lie. I don't know. Then don't decide, I say. Not today. Not in a hall that smells like old wood and hurry. Riley returns from the restroom with the sort of composure women earn like degrees. She takes his arm like an answer. Evan. She nods toward the elevator. To me, Dana. She makes my name sound like a verdict you can appeal if you bring snacks. They go. Agent Lynn watches them the way you watch a chessboard you've invested in emotionally. He'll wobble, she says. Let him. What about tonight? I ask. Stay home, she says. Not because you're fragile, because they think you are. Let them try one more time to push. Phones on, mics on, doors locked. Copy, Mark says, because some habits keep you alive. Home is cheerful the way rooms can be when you're about to cry in them. I change into a sweater that forgives. I slice fruit I don't want and make soup I won't finish. The city puts on its evening shirt. The sun leaves without making a speech. At 6:30, my phone lights with a text from a number that used to be Evans and now reads as the household. We're stopping by to make sure you're okay. 10 minutes. Mark's eyes meet mine. He shakes his head once. I type, no thank you, I'm resting. Lawyer has advised no unplanned visits. I hit send and feel, for the first time in a week, the power of a period. 3 minutes later, the intercom buzzes anyway. Mark doesn't move. We let it annoy itself into silence. A minute after that, the door to the stairwell opens and closes. Feet on the landing. A voice Riley thinks is quiet. Dana, it's me. I brought soup. Mark looks at me. I nod. He opens the door on the chain. Now's not a good time, he says, pleasant as a hotel manager. Let me in, Riley says, the velvet off the words now. I'm worried. You can be worried 2 feet that way, Mark says, and holds out his phone like a talisman. You're on camera. Try to open your face more. Is Dana okay? Evan asks from behind her, asking the right question in the wrong hallway. I'm fine, I say, loudly enough to be recorded from both sides. Thank you for bringing soup. Leave it there. I'll get it in the morning. Riley hesitates, the arithmetic in her eyes getting uglier by the second. We just want to help, she says, and there's no syrup in it now. The hearing was a misunderstanding. We can fix this as a family. Then stop trying to fix it as a creditor, I say, steady, and I feel the sentence settle into my bones in a way that will let me sleep someday. Mark closes the door gently. The lock turns. The hallway swallows their footsteps and then spits out the elevator's ding like a punctuation mark. I stand there with my palm on the door and feel both like a barricade and a woman. The difference is a kind of exhaustion only mothers and sheriffs know. My phone buzzes. Agent Lynn, Bank order returned. Joint account shows multiple incoming gifts, rapid outflows to shells. Subpoena served on notary for prior files. Clinic interview at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Get some rest. Do you sleep? I text back, which is the sort of joke women tell to men who carry badges to prove they exist. Later, she replies. 2 more signatures and I'll like our chances. I put the phone face down on the table. The apartment smells like soup and copies. Mark cleans up the kitchen like a man who believes in tomorrow. He pauses at the door, hand on the knob. Tonight was the break, he says. You held. Tomorrow is the fall, I say, not meaning me. He nods once, the gravity of it a kindness. We'll be there. When he's gone, the room is full of the ordinary. The plant in the corner asks for nothing. The clock remembers how to count time without counting costs. I sit at the table with the letter of intent in front of me and write another letter in pen on paper that doesn't pretend to be anything else. Evan, I begin. Not dear, because grief has a way of insisting on the plainly accurate. I love you. If you were the prosecutor, I would hand you every piece of evidence and tell you to do your job. If you were the judge, I would ask for no favors. If you were the child at the top of the stairs listening to a fight, I would lie and tell you it's about the weather and send you back to bed. You are all 3, and I cannot be everything all at once. So I am your mother. Tomorrow I may win in a way that makes you feel lost. I am leaving this bridge for you anyway. Take your time crossing. It won't go anywhere. When I finish, the page is damp at the corner from a tear I didn't ask permission to shed. I put the letter in an envelope and write his name because it always looks like the first word I ever learned to write. Then I turn off the lights, one by one, the way you turn off a stage after the crew has struck the set and the audience has gone home, and I walk to bed without looking at the window. The city keeps its promises. Sirens, laughter, the hum of people who don't know the names of the strangers whose nights they just crossed. I lay my cheek on a clean pillow that doesn't smell like potatoes anymore, and I let the dark do its work. I dream of a house with too many doors. In the morning, we will knock on the right ones with the right papers, and when they open, there will be consequences. And there will be my son, and there will be the person I promised I would be when he was small, the fence he curses until he realizes it held. Morning smells like coffee and paper. Saturday. I sit at my table with the envelope that holds last night's victory and today's cost. Mark texts at 7:42 a.m. Lynn WAUSA Clinic 8 a.m. will update. I water the plant because living things deserve consistency. The city pushes light through my blinds with its usual indifference. At 8:31, a new message. Adler interview complete. Requested exec function, plus finances language by text, says standard. We have the thread. A second later, metadata preserved. I picture the psychiatrist's hands smoothing a cardigan while the truth sits on the desk between her and the badge. Standard, she called it. Maybe it is in rooms where convenience pretends to be care. I pour coffee I won't drink and set the cup down next to the plant as if caffeine could photosynthesize. At 9 on the dot, Agent Lynn calls. We have Adler's admissions, she says without greeting. She says she meant well. She did, however, tailor her letter at Ms. North's request. That gives our prosecutor words to use. We're drafting a short affidavit to update the probate record and to support a broader warrant on the joint accounts shells. Do I need to be anywhere? I ask. Not yet. Your counsel will forward our notice to the court. Sit tight. She pauses, then adds, human bleeding through steel for a second. You're doing well. Define well, I say, but she's already gone. By 10, the apartment feels too small for my bones. I clean inside drawers that were clean yesterday. I fold kitchen towels into compliance. Mark stops by long enough to swap memory cards and say, Lynn's crew is working 2 more warrants, one for a mailbox store where one of Riley's vendors collects, and one for a phone Riley uses only at noon. How do you know noon? I ask. She's a creature of lunch, he says, and leaves before the joke can frighten away the usefulness. At 11:13, Evan texts, "Can we talk?" 3 words that have meant pizza, bad grades, car trouble, and the soft stomach of grief. Today, it's a conflagration with a polite subject line. Public, I reply. Cafe on 3rd, noon. I walk there like the sidewalk is a witness. The rain has decided to be decorative. Evan is already in the corner booth, hands around a cup like warmth is something you can force into your palms. "You told the FBI my wife committed a crime," he says, before I've sat. "I gave them recordings and documents," I say, sliding into the booth like a woman who trusts chairs. "They'll decide what the words are." His jaw works like he's chewing something that doesn't want to be swallowed. "She says you set her up, that you dangled money to make her look greedy, that you're humiliating us to punish me." "I dangled the truth," I say. "She grabbed it and signed her initials next to immediate." He looks away, the way people look away from car accidents and parents. "She showed me a video," he says. "You rehearsing with Mark, lines about confusion, about help." "That happened," I say. "I practiced how to be safe." He laughs once, a sound with no humor. "Do you hear yourself?" "Safe. Like any of this is safe." "It's safer than handing your life to someone who uses notarized stamps like keys," I say. "Even. Because the only way to move through a firestorm is to breathe on purpose. Sit with me at the lawyer's office this afternoon. Listen to what they have, then decide if I'm humiliating you or holding you." He rubs his eyes with the base of his hand hard enough to leave red. "She's my wife. And you're my son," I say. "Both things are true. Only one of us is asking you to sign away your future." He blows out a breath. "Fine," he says, standing too quickly to be agreement. 2 p.m., Baker and Row. He leaves the cup, leaves me, leaves a small scorch mark on my hour. By the time I'm home, my phone lights with a number I've learned. A compliance coach is calm. The bank. "Ms. Morgan," the manager says, warm enough not to curdle. "We've received a federal preservation order and an advisory. We'll maintain the hold on high-dollar transfers pending law enforcement review. Your everyday access remains unchanged." A polite way of saying, "We read the weather report too." "Thank you," I say, because this is a day for grown-up manners. At 1:45, Mark and I step into Baker and Row's conference room. The partner is there with an associate whose pen moves like a metronome. Agent Lynn arrives with a folder that could change the tilt of a room. Evan is on time, eyes caught between 2 stories. Riley walks in with the calm of a woman who believes meetings are for manipulating. "Thank you for coming," the partner says, which is a sentence that means we are going to make a record. "We'll begin by acknowledging the recording devices in this room," he adds, because consent is a religion here. Everyone nods. Riley smiles like consent is a mirror. Agent Lynn doesn't do ceremony. "We'll keep this simple," she says. "Ms. North, on Thursday, you asked Ms. Morgan, on a recorded line with your consent, to sign an immediate, durable power of attorney and to route a wire to a joint account you control. That same night, you initialed the word immediate on a notarized acknowledgement. Yesterday, you attempted to exercise authority with the bank based on a fax document that does not bear Ms. Morgan's signature. This morning, Dr. Adler confirmed by text she tailored a letter at your request to emphasize executive function and finances. Riley's lawyer isn't here. This isn't formal enough to require one yet and too fast for him to keep up. She composes her face into hurt-shaped like cooperation. We were helping a family member, she says. She asked us to. She said she wanted to gift us money. I said we should make it legal to protect her. Lynn doesn't look at me. She doesn't need to. She flips a page. We also have bank records reflecting multiple incoming wires into your joint account from other individuals over the past 2 years, followed by rapid transfers to shell entities registered to mail drops and brand new LLCs, including one flagged previously by FinCEN. Can you explain those? Riley blinks twice in the way that buys time. Friends, she says. Loans between friends. Do you have notes evidencing those loans? Lynn asks, polite enough to be lethal. Verbal agreements, Riley says. You know how people are. I do, Lynn says. They keep receipts. Evan's mouth opens to say something and closes around nothing. His look ping-pongs between his wife and a stack of paper that might be the end of his marriage dressed as stationery. Do you deny asking Dr. Adler to emphasize executive function and finances? Lynn asks. I deny wrongdoing, Riley says, choosing a verb that fits most days and few facts. People ask doctors for what they need. She could have said no. She did, Lynn says, then changed her mind. We'll speak with her board about why. Riley's focus narrows to a point. You're trying to trap me for caring. No, Lynn says, almost gentle. We're documenting your pattern. The partner clears his throat, a soft bell to change the scene. Ms. North, he says, measured. If you have a counsel you trust, this is a good time to call him. She laughs, brittle. You think I need a lawyer to talk to my mother-in-law? Lynn slides a copy of the letter of intent across the table, the one with Riley's neat handwriting adding joint household account for gifts, and the last digits. You were careful here, she says. Careful is interesting. Riley stares at the paper like it might rearrange itself if she stares with enough will. Dana is confused, she says softly to Evan, abandoning law, reaching for love. She's always been. She thinks she's protecting you. She's ruining us. Evan looks at me and I watch something fundamental wobble. There it is. The final doubt. The piece of the Jenga tower you know will bring the whole thing down, and you touch it anyway because you have to see it fall. Play the call, he says to no one and everyone. His voice slots into a register I haven't heard since the first time he said mom with adult teeth. Lynn taps an iPad. Our voices fill the room, clean as cold water. I'm going to record this so I remember what you said, okay? Of course. What do you need from me today to finalize the wire? If you name us as agents, durable, immediate, we'll handle the transfer. You don't need to worry. What does immediate mean? It just means it works now. Which account should I use? The joint one. It's easier to explain. What do we tell the bank about my memory? That you're reducing stress by delegating. Don't mention confusion. The words live in air and then live in silence. Evan listens to his wife talk to a version of me I invented for survival and watches his own face crumble in the reflection on the conference room glass. Riley moves fast. She always has. You begged us to help, she says, tears arriving like a press release. You said you were scared. You said, I said tomorrow, I reply, and you brought a notary to dessert. Lynn closes the folder with the careful finality of someone who does this often. Ms. North, we're going to pause here. You're free to leave. You're also free to stay and continue without counsel. If you stay, I will advise you that lying to a federal agent is a crime. If you go, I will advise you that we have sufficient probable cause for a complaint alleging attempted wire fraud and financial exploitation. If you'd like to avoid a public pickup, now is an opportune moment to arrange a surrender with your attorney. Riley stands, knocking the leg of her chair against the table because even Grace gets tired. This is insane, she says. To Evan, desperate and precise. Are you really going to let her do this to us? After everything she didn't do for you? He doesn't move. He stares at the wood grain like it might tell him who he is. Evan, she says, voice breaking in the way that has rescued her from so much. Please. He lifts his head. The room is so quiet I can hear the fluorescent lights find their hum. Did you ask the doctor to write the letter? He asks. Yes or no? I asked her to be clear, Riley says, a pivot masquerading as an answer. Did you try to get her to sign power of attorney and wire money to your account before any lawyer saw it? His voice doesn't shake. It just lands. I tried to help, she says. I tried to fix. Yes or no, he says. And there's my boy, the one who used to insist the rules of board games mattered, because otherwise what were we doing? She sees the door close in his face and veers to fear. If you side with her, you'll lose me. He swallows. The muscle in his jaw tightens like a fist learning manners. If I side with you, he says, the words careful, devastating. I'll lose me. She stares at him like betrayal is a language he should have learned from her mouth. Then she smiles the smile I've seen 3 times, the one from the wedding, the binder, the moment she untucked the word immediate from her purse like a prayer. I'm calling my lawyer, she says, and leaves with the dignity of a person who thinks dignity travels. The door closes. The partner leans back and lets air back in the room. Mark exhales. Agent Lynn's face doesn't move. The corners of her eyes soften by a millimeter, which is as emotional as she gets on duty. Evan doesn't look at me when he says, I need a minute, and slips out into the hallway. I watch the hinge swallow him and let him go. Lynn turns to me. We'll file the complaint under seal, she says. Her counsel will arrange surrender this afternoon or we'll pick her up. Either way, no one knocks on your door unless it's us. Good, I say. I already promised the door I wouldn't be cruel to it again. She half smiles and stands. I'll be in touch when she's in custody. Stay reachable. They leave me with the lawyer whose eyes are kinder when the tape recorders nap. You all right? He asks. No, I say honestly. And yes. The afternoon vomits headlines. I don't know how the press found it. Someone at the courthouse with a cousin at a blog, a notary who likes to talk, a bank employee who likes to whisper, but it's everywhere. Billionaire widow. Claims financial exploitation by new daughter-in-law. Photos of me that make me look like $1,000 and 68 emotions. Photos of Riley that make her look like the cover of an aspirational magazine. The comments are noise. The story is simple. Money met hunger. What the cameras don't capture is the smallness, the sticky note, the underlined address, the tiny heart dotting an initial next to a word that would have moved my life under someone else's hand. Agent Lynn texts at 4:12. Surrender negotiated. 5 p.m. at 5:07 in custody. Initial appearance Monday. I sit on my couch and stare at the plant as if it will tell me whether any of this will leave a mark that doesn't fade. At 6:03, Evan knocks, alone, no intercom, no tote, hands empty. May I come in? He asks, the politeness of a man asking to enter the house he grew up in. Yes, I say, and step aside. He walks the perimeter like memory is a piece of furniture he's trying to find in its old place. He stops at the window and looks down at a city that doesn't care about him with equal opportunity. When he turns, his face holds something new, a rawness that isn't defensiveness, a hurt that isn't armor. They arrested her, he says, like the world just did something irreversible. They did, I say. What happens now? Process, I say. Lawyers, court dates, maybe a deal, maybe a trial, maybe something between. She has rights. You have choices. He nods like nodding is an action that will keep him upright. I feel sick, he says. Me too, I say. Winning is expensive. He laughs, one dry puff. You always did like to turn sentences into weapons and medicine at the same time. It's my only gift, I say. Well, one of them. He looks at the envelope on the table, the letter I wrote last night, and picks it up like it weighs more than paper. He doesn't open it. He tucks it into his jacket. I'm going to stay with a friend for a few days, he says. I can't. He gestures at the air where a wife used to be. Good, I say, and it's not a sentence I ever imagined using to bless my son's loneliness. Let your house be quiet before it is changed. He hesitates in the doorway. The boy is still in there, somewhere behind the man who made a choice. Do you hate her? He asks. No, I say, because hate is a hobby I can't afford. I hate the pattern she learned to survive. I hate the people who taught it to her. I hate that you're standing in my door asking me that question. I inhale steady. I love you. That part is easy. His eyes shine and do not spill. He nods like acceptance is a muscle he's learning. Okay, he says, I'll call you tomorrow. When the door closes, the apartment makes a sound like a book being set down. I sit and let the red hum of victory scrub at the blue ache underneath. The plant in the corner keeps being a plant. At 8:19, the phone rings with a number that means prosecutors. The AUSA's voice is brisk, precise. We charged a complaint under 18 U.S.C. 1343 and 1349. She says, wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. We're not naming Dr. Adler at this time. Referral to her board will be noted. We'll present to a grand jury within 30 days. We advise you not to discuss details with press. I advise me too, I say, and she laughs the way lawyers laugh when people let them feel human for a beat. After I hang up, Mark texts a photo from the sidewalk. A couple of cameras outside the building, a reporter in a coat that thinks it's winter. Media, want comment. I reply, no. He replies, copy. I'll run interference. 10 minutes later, the cameras are chasing a dog that looks like it belongs to a woman who has better places to be. The night stretches. I don't turn on the TV. I don't check the internet. I sit with the quiet. When the phone vibrates again, it's a number I don't know, but know anyway. Dana? A voice says, thinner without power. Riley. Recorded, because my phone is my spine now. They took my phone. I get one call. You called me, I say. Interesting choice. You did this, she says, as if narrative can be willed into being. You made me look like a criminal. You did that yourself, I say. I held up a mirror. Silence. Then the rustle of ego turning over in a small bed. I loved him, she says, and for the first time I hear a version of the truth that isn't strategy. Not at first, she adds, honest enough now to be dangerous. At first, I loved the way he loved. It's easy to borrow. Then it wasn't borrowing. Then it was taking. I don't know how to stop. I close my eyes. Somewhere in the building, a neighbor laughs at a sitcom. The normalcy is both insult and mercy. You tell your lawyer to tell the prosecutor what you just told me, I say. The part about not knowing how to stop. Maybe it buys you a smaller, truer future. You think you're the hero? She says, reverting to the tone that fits better in her mouth. You're just a woman with money and a camera. I'm a woman with a son, I say. That's my jurisdiction. Tell him I'm sorry, she says, and the line clicks dead, a small mercy cutting the rest. I stare at the phone until the screen dims. Then I write 3 sentences in a notebook I keep for days that feel like other people's. I didn't start this. I won today. I paid for it anyway. It helps to have a ledger that includes the costs. At 10:15, Agent Lynn sends one more message. Good work today. Tomorrow. Quiet Monday, arraignment. I reply with nothing, because gratitude between competent adults is often the absence of noise. I brush my teeth like it matters and go to bed like sleep is a habit I can count on. It shows up eventually, slung over my shoulders like an old friend that doesn't ask questions. In the shallow part of night, I dream I'm back in the ballroom with the chandeliers like tame comets. The room is full of people who know numbers and nothing about us. Riley walks toward me with a plate she doesn't throw. Evan stands between us, arms out, not to protect anyone, but to hold the air steady while we figure out who we are now. When I wake, the room is dark and honest. The day we just made sits on the dresser next to my glasses. Morning will come and do what mornings do. Insist. Monday will arrive with courtroom light and a calendar that doesn't care about our feelings. After that, the slow machinery of consequence will learn our names. But tonight, in the small hours after the fire, I keep a different score. My son chose himself. He did it without my words in his mouth. He may hate me for the cost. He may love me through the bill. Either way, the fence held. The smoke is thick. The house still stands. Monday's light isn't merciful. It's fluorescent. The arraignment courtroom hums with the paperwork of other people's mistakes. Riley stands at the defense table in a blazer that wants to be a shield. The charge is red, wire fraud, conspiracy, and she says, "Not guilty," in a voice that used to sell confidence and now sells delay. The judge orders her to surrender her passport, imposes travel limits, and sets the next date. Her lawyer squeezes her elbow like reassurance can be transferred by touch. I sit 2 rows back. Evan sits with me. He folds and unfolds the letter I gave him like he's trying to learn it by feel. When the hearing ends, Riley turns and looks for him the way you look for a life raft in a pool full of lifeguards. He stands. He doesn't move toward her. She lifts her chin, and for a breath, I see the girl inside the plan, blinking against the lights. Then the plan pulls her face back around her like armor. She leaves without looking at me. Agent Lynn meets us in the hall, her folder tucked under her arm the way some people carry umbrellas before rain. "We'll keep you posted," she says. "AUSA expects Discovery to move quickly. If her counsel is wise, they'll talk." "What does talk buy her?" I ask. "Fewer years and a chance to pin the shells on someone else," Lynn says. "It doesn't unring anything." She tips her head toward Evan. "Take care of each other." It sounds like permission to stop holding my breath. I don't. Not yet. 3 weeks is the time it takes for hair to decide what it's doing and for the news cycle to move on if you let it. We let it. I decline every request to tell my side, even when the outlets promise to be kind, even when a woman with a voice made of empathy leaves a voicemail that almost works. I don't owe strangers the sound of my grief. I owe my son breakfast. We start small. Scrambled eggs that come out like a truce. Walks where we name 10 things we see, and none of them are lawyer. We sit with a therapist who believes in the ordinary magic of noticing. Evan talks about anger that feels like wet cardboard, heavy, shapeless, impossible to put down in one piece. I talk about love that arrived with a mortgage and never got to nap. We practice sentences that respect each other's scars. We fail sometimes. We keep showing up. On Thursdays, we meet at the first building I ever bought, a tired 2-story with brick that keeps its chin up. It smells like dust and rent checks. I tell him about the broker who taught me how to calculate cap rates with a pencil, about the first winter the boiler died and I learned how to haggle with men who like to condescend at a discount. I show him the file cabinet where I kept handwritten ledgers, the dents in the metal where fear knocked and didn't get let in. He touches the scratches as if they were braille, and he could read me better that way. I make changes, the kind that look boring in a letter and feel revolutionary in a life. Baker and Rowe drafts new governance. The trust that blooms for him at 40 becomes a garden with sturdy fences. An independent corporate trustee sits between us and temptation. Any future power of attorney springs only on 2 concurring physicians who share no golf course, and even then it's narrow, audited, and expires like milk. We appoint a fiduciary committee that isn't family, a retired judge with a spine, a CPA who laughs in balance sheets, a pastor who understands the math of human vows. I give them authority to say no. I practice letting them. At the company, I hire a COO who loves a clean process more than he loves his own reflection. We build an actual board, one with people who argue on purpose. I tell my counsel to write down what happens if I get sick. I tell my staff, if a letter arrives with a doctor's name and urgency in its adjectives, no one moves money until 3 people have asked at least 5 questions. They laugh nervously, then nod the way people do when their paycheck is a podium. Something inside me resists the bureaucracy of safety. And then something else, older and wiser, exhales. The fence doesn't just keep wolves out, it keeps lazy thinking in. The state board for Dr. Adler opens an inquiry. A month later, they announce a consent agreement. remedial ethics training, a fine, a formal reprimand on her record for tailoring a letter at a non-patient's request. It's not a burning at the stake. It's a bright, sticky note on her file that says, "Think harder next time." I try not to enjoy it. I fail a little and forgive myself. The notary loses her commission. She doesn't fight. She gives Lynn 3 names instead, other clients with temporary forms and permanent consequences. The AUSA calls it useful cooperation. I call it a map to rooms I'm grateful I don't have to enter. Riley's case inches like a heavy book. Discovery lands. Motions argue with other motions. Her lawyer asks the court to dismiss on the grounds of family misunderstanding. The judge files that under nice try. In the hallway, a reporter asks me if I believe in rehabilitation. I say, I believe in consequences and in the possibility we learn from them. One doesn't cancel the other. It ends up as a quote under a bad photo of me holding a reusable grocery bag. The internet calls me austere and a queen and a liar and someone's mother. None of it is about me. I don't click show more. Evan files for separation. He doesn't do it with a victory lap. He does it with a stack of paperwork and a middle-of-the-night text that reads, "I'm sorry," and then another that reads, "I know." He meets with his own therapist and a financial planner who explains fee structures like a teacher, explaining fractions to a child who was embarrassed out of asking years ago. He interviews for a job he doesn't need because he needs to need something that isn't love. He gets one, a project manager role at a housing nonprofit where people agree on fewer nouns and more verbs. He comes home exhausted the good way. He stops saying sorry to the air. We set up a standing date. Sunday dinner, rotating houses, no business talk unless it's funny. The first Sunday, I oversalt the pot roast on purpose, and we both laugh until we cry for different reasons. The second Sunday, he brings a pie that collapses in the middle, and we eat the edges with spoons and call it rustic. On the third Sunday, he tells me he opened the letter. He doesn't say which sentence broke him and rebuilt him in the same minute. He doesn't have to. "I'm not proud of how long it took," he says, staring at a point just past my shoulder, like the words need a runway. "Your pace held," I say, and I mean it. That's the only metric that matters now. He nods, and then he does something he hasn't done since he was 13 and too tall for it. He leans his head on my shoulder for exactly 1 second. The second lasts longer than some marriages. It's easy to turn vigilance into a religion. I refuse the most tempting sermons. I learn where reasonable ends and ruin begins. I put my passwords in a manager my lawyer controls with emergency access that requires 2 keys and a time delay designed to save us from ourselves. I write a document for myself called Sunlight, How to Tell the People You Love What Matters Before Anyone Else Tries to. It has tabs, it has jokes, it has a page titled, If I Seem Confused, check if I'm tired, hungry, grieving, or protecting you. Another page, if you want to help, start with these 5 tasks that don't involve my money. I share a copy with Evan. He reads it like it's a peace treaty and then adds a sticky note on the last page. If I seem confused, ask me to sit down. We sign the margins with our initials like teenagers. No hearts. Agent Lynn texts sometimes, which is like receiving a postcard from a city where the weather is always complicated. Plea talks progressing, she'll write. Or grand jury next Thursday. Or once simply, we are not the story. We are the record. I tape that one to my refrigerator until steam curls it. When news breaks, Riley intends to plead to a lesser count in exchange for cooperation on the shell vendors, I sit down before I call Evan. He answers on the first ring. We say very little. Some days, quiet is the only accurate statement. When sentencing comes, the courtroom is a different one with the same smell. The AUSA speaks about patterns and vulnerability and consent that isn't real if it's manufactured by fear. Riley's lawyer speaks about upbringing, scarcity, people who taught her hunger disguised as strategy. He says, she's sorry. She says she is too. She doesn't look at me when she says it. She looks at the bench. That's fine. I'm not the one she needs to convince. The judge gives her time. Not the maximum, not the minimum, a sentence designed to say, you are not special and you are still a person. Supervised release after. Restitution to 2 men who weren't ready to out loud their shame until someone else did first. Mandatory counseling that is not a checkbox, but also not magic. Dr. Adler's board decision is mentioned in a footnote in the paper the next day. The notary's name becomes trivia. The headline writers keep clicking. We don't. Back home, I look at the burn scar on my cheek in the mirror. It's faint now, a pale comma at the edge of a sentence that went long. I touch it and do not flinch. In the kitchen, the plant forgives me again for overwatering. I open the windows and let air in that isn't staged. One afternoon, Evan asks to see the accounts. Not because he doubts me, because he wants to learn how to read the story money tells when it's not being dramatic. We sit with a spreadsheet and the calm joy of columns. I show him why liquidity matters more than bragging rights. He shows me a budget that prioritizes time over items. We argue lightly about whether to sell a building with too much history and not enough return. We compromise like people who like each other and the future. We take a class together at the community center, Estate Planning 101 for grown children. We sit in the back. No one knows who we are. A woman at the front cries quietly when she talks about her dad's second wife. A man asks a question about springing powers, and the lawyer says, "Make the trigger hard to fake." I scribble it down like scripture, and then draw a little fence next to it because sometimes my metaphors need company. We start volunteering on Saturdays. Nothing dramatic. We deliver meals to seniors with doorbells that take too long to answer. Evan carries the heavier bags. I carry the clipboard. We learn names. We listen to stories that are too long for the cold. We leave each threshold knowing the difference between charity and attention. I make a donation in Riley's name to a legal clinic that defends elder abuse cases and trains notaries to recognize temporary as a red flag, not a feature. I don't tell anyone but the receipt. It feels better than revenge and worse than a hug. That seems about right. On a Wednesday that smells like pencil shavings and rain, I call Mark and say, "It's time." He knows what I mean. He's been preparing for it quietly. Files labeled Succession, a binder called The Day After. We schedule a meeting with the board. I announce a transition plan that will take 3 years and a great deal of therapy for my ego. We plot my exit like we plot hurricanes, naming it, tracking it, respecting it. I take the title Chair Emerita because I am still a woman who likes a door plaque. The COO becomes CEO. He doesn't say thank you during the meeting. He says it later in a hallway, like gratitude is a private currency. Good. I like him better for that. My last act before I step back is to write a plain language letter to employees about why the company will survive me, because it was never just me. I include a paragraph about exploitation, not as a PR flourish, but as policy. If anyone tells you you're confused, it says, bring another set of ears. If anyone tells you you're crazy, bring a lawyer. If anyone tells you it will be easier, put your wallet in your other pocket. HR edits out the punchlines. I let them. Evan and I mark the end of the beginning with a baseball game because some American cliches earned their cliche with interest. We sit in cheap seats where the beer is bad and the view is honest. He asked me if I ever wanted to run away. I tell him I did once, right after his father died. Just pack a bag and point the car west until the map got bored. What stopped you? He asks. You, I say. And then I correct myself, because the truth doesn't mind being adjusted. You and the fact that I hate driving at night. He laughs and then gets quiet. He watches a foul ball arc like a sentence that lost its verb. You're really okay with stepping back? He asks. There's worry in it and wonder. I'm okay with making room, I say, for a life that isn't only protecting what I built. What do you want to do with room? He asks. Make pancakes on weekdays, I say. Learn the names of our neighbors' dogs. Take a class with you that has nothing to do with money. Visit the building with the brick when it rains and let it be mine for 1 hour without asking it to work. He nods. I can help with the dogs. He points with his chin toward the field. And I'll explain infield fly rule again if you keep refusing to memorize it. It's a terrible rule, I say, which is, we both know, not the point. The stadium swells with noise for a reason that requires statistics. We stand just because everyone else does. When the wave comes, we pretend to be too dignified for it, and then we do it anyway. Months later, I wake early to the sound of a delivery truck playing a beeping song in the alley. The air has the bright edge of a morning that will be warm without being showy. I brew coffee because habit is a love language. Evan is coming over with a woman from his nonprofit's office, someone he calls a friend with a small smile he doesn't try to hide. I am ready to be normal about it. I am ready to learn her name and not imagine it scrawled next to immediate. On the counter, the sunlight binder sits where we left it last week, open to the page titled Rules We Agree to Before Crisis. The first rule is no secrets meant to protect the other. The second is no rushing. We go slow on purpose. The third is if something feels like a cliff, we say the word cliff out loud. It sounds silly when I read it. It saved us anyway. Agent Lynn sends a final text that reads, Case closed. It's not dramatic. It's a period where there used to be a comma. I reply with a photo of the plant. Lush in a way it wasn't when this began. She sends back a thumbs up emoji, which may be the most human thing I've ever received from a federal agent. I laugh, alone in my kitchen, and it doesn't sound like the laugh I start when I'm trying not to cry. It sounds like the kind you plan to repeat. Evan knocks the agreed knock. I open the door to find him holding flowers that look like someone taught Spring how to make a bouquet. The woman beside him is ordinary in the powerful way. Good shoes, a generous face, eyes that look like they'd rather watch than be watched. Mom, he says, like the word finally fits the room. This is Lila. Welcome, I say, and mean it without asterisks. We eat pancakes too early for etiquette. We talk about ugly buildings we love and dogs we'd steal if we were the stealing kind. Lila asks me about the first property. I tell her the boiler story. She laughs in the right places and doesn't try to fix the part where it hurt. After they leave, I stand at the window where so many versions of me have stood. Woman with potatoes on her face. Woman with a strategy where a heart should be. Woman who held a phone like a life preserver. Woman who held a door like a boundary. The city doesn't care, which is its gift. The air is possible. I take out a pad and write a letter I don't need to give him, because he already has the live version. Evan, I didn't build the fence to keep you in. I built it to keep the cliff from taking you by surprise. I am learning the difference. I am taking long walks on the safe side of the fence because there's a view I missed while I was counting trespassers. I love you. That part was always easy. The rest is our homework. Mom. I tear it off and tuck it behind the sunlight binder where it will live in case of emergency and in case of joy. Then I turn to the stove. The pot roast doesn't need salt today. It needs time and heat and a person who knows when to turn the oven down. I do that now without fanfare. The plant approves. The day proceeds like a day, not a test. When Evan comes for dinner, he brings nothing but appetite and a story about a tenant who planted tomatoes in a window box because hope looks like red fruit you can eat in August. We laugh until we almost burn the biscuits. We do not talk about courts or letters or anything that requires a gavel. He helps me clear the table without being asked. We wash dishes with our sleeves rolled up like a family who lives inside the verb to try. After, we sit on the balcony with our feet on the rail like teenagers. The city lights are small and sincere. He says, "Thank you for not saying I told you so," and I say, "Thank you for not making me be right." And somewhere between those sentences, a bridge holds our weight. I used to think resolution was a drum roll. It's not. It's a schedule, and an onion, and a form you fill out with someone who can spell your middle name. It's choosing the quiet plan over the loud victory. It's knowing which door to lock and which to open, and when to stand between them with a hand on the knob and a heart that knows the cost. It's also, sometimes, Just this: a fence that no one is pushing against tonight, and a son who is still here, and a mother who finally learned to sit down. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.